Helena Ivanovna Roerich was a Russian philosopher, writer, and public figure. In the early 20th century, she created, in cooperation with the teachers of the East, a philosophic teaching of living ethics. She was an organizer and participant of cultural and enlightened creativity in the U.S., conducted under the guidance of her husband, Nicholas Roerich. Along with her husband, she took part in expeditions of hard-to-reach and little-investigated regions of Central Asia. She was an honorary president-founder of the Institute of Himalayan Studies, Urusvati, in India, and co-author of the idea of the International Treaty for Protection of Artistic and Scientific Institutions and Historical Monuments. She translated 2 volumes of The Secret Doctrine of H. P. Blavatsky, and also selected Mahatma's letters from English to Russian. Early life. Roerich was born in the family of Ivan Ivanovich Shaposhnikov, a well-known St. Petersburg architect. Ekaterina Vasilievna Shaposhnikova, Roerich's mother, belonged to an ancient Goleniskov-Kutuzov family, which originated from Novgorod at the end of the 13th century. Significant members of this family included Field Marshal Mikhail Illarionovich Goleniskov-Kutuzov, well-known poet of the end of 19th century, Arseny Arkadievich Goleniskov-Kutuzov, composer, and Modest Petrovich Mussorgsky. Roerich grew up and was educated in rich cultural traditions of her family. Since childhood she was inquisitive, independent and purposeful. She was extremely talented in many ways, played piano with great excellence, and by the age of 7 could read and write in 3 languages. For the very young age, she started reading artistic, historical, spiritual and philosophic books. In 1895, Roerich graduated from Mariinsky Gymnasium in St. Petersburg with a gold medal, a special award for excellence in the studies. Though the education she received was of a great quality, Roerich often studied additionally on her own. She learned a subtle perception of painting, knew Russian and European literature well, studied the history of religion and philosophy, and took great interest in the works of the Indian philosophers Ramakrishna, Vivekananda, and Tagore. After finishing her education at gymnasium, Roerich entered the St. Petersburg Musical Private School. The director of this school was I.A. Borovka, a senior of Metropolitan Conservatoire, and professor of piano playing. He was a noted figure in Petersburg's musical culture of the time, and personally mentored Roerich. After graduating, which was aimed mainly towards revealing the most gifted candidates who should receive higher music education, Roerich intended to continue her education in the St. Petersburg Conservatoire, but her relatives banned her from entering the conservatoire, worried that she would be interested by the revolutionary ideas found in the student environment. Thus, Roerich continued her education at home, where she perfected her grasp of foreign languages and read many things. Marriage and family. Roerich and her mother often spent the summer at Bologo in the Novgorod region, with her auntie, V. Putyutina, at the estate of her husband, Prince P. A. Putyutin. In 1899, at Bologard, she met the painter and archaeologist Nicholas Konstantinovich Roerich. They fell in love, and in spite of her relatives' opposition, in 1901, she and Nicholas were married in St. Petersburg. In 2001, at the place in Bologo where they first met, a memorial named Monument of Love was established. It contains a quotation from N. Roerich's essay, The University. I met Lada, my partner in life and inspirer, at Bologard, at Prince P. A. Putyutin's estate. Joy. This was a strong alliance of 2 loving people united by deep mutual feelings and common views. N. Roerich wrote about the marriage in his declining years. We passed amicably any obstacles, and the obstacles turned into possibilities. I devoted my books to Helena, my wife, friend, partner and inspirer. Many of Roerich's paintings were a result of the common creativity. He called her "she who leads" in his books, and asserted that on many his canvases, two signatures should be written, his own and Roerich's. "We created together, and not without reason. It was said that the works must have two names, women's and men's." Nicholas and Roerich had two children. In August 1902, their eldest son George was born. Later, he became a world-renowned scientist and Orientalist. The younger son, Sviatoslav, was born in October 1904. He became a painter, thinker, and public worker. Roerich paid great attention to the children's upbringing. She read them the books, and taught them foreign languages and music. Together, they visited concerts, exhibitions, and theater. She helped each of the sons to discover their own interests and dispositions, and created favorable conditions for their development. Roerich supported all of her husband's initiatives, and went deeply into all his fields of study. In 1903–1904, they traveled together through 40 old Russian cities to find sources of national history and culture. During these travels, Roerich had taken expert photographs of churches, architecture, monuments, paintings, and ornaments. She also mastered the art of restoration and, together with Nicholas Konstantinovich, recovered some of the masterpieces of great artists such as Rubens, Bruegel, Van Dyck, and Van Orley that had been hidden by latest painters. She also displayed her artistic intuition by collecting works of art and antiquities. Roerich collected a beautiful family collection, composed of more than 300 works, which they later had transferred to the Hermitage Museum. Roerich also knew archaeology well. Together with her husband, she often left for excavations in the regions of Novgorod and Tvers, and took part in the work. Roerich and the sons thought highly of Roerich, and considered her a spiritual leader and keeper of family's foundations. In 1916, because of a serious lung disease, following the doctor's insistence, the Roerich family moved to Finland, to the seashore of Lake Ladoga. In 1918, Finland declared its independence and closed the Russian border. In 1919, the family moved to England, and made their home in London. Here, in 1920, Roerich, in collaboration with a group of anonymous thinkers and philosophers of the East, which in accordance with Indian spiritual tradition were named the Great Teachers, began to work for the living ethics teaching. This was a new philosophical system relating to spiritual and cultural evolution of mankind. Travels in 1920, N.K. Roerich received an invitation to tour the United States with an exhibition of his paintings. Thus, Roerich's family moved to New York City. Here, the cultural activity was organized under N. Roerich's leadership in partnership with Roerich. The culmination of this was the foundation in America of such cultural organizations as the Nicholas Roerich Museum, the Master Institute of United Arts, the International Painters Association, Coardens, and the International Art Center, Corona Mindy. All of these cultural centers organized by the Roerichs had a great influence on cultural development. Working throughout the world under the leadership of Roerich's cultural centers, numerous societies, creative clubs, and educational institutes united people in the name of culture activity. On December 1923, Roerich, along with her family, moved to India. This country had always been of great interest to the Roerichs. Adoration of India and its spiritual culture was not unusual among Russian intellectuals of the time. At the end of the 19th century and beginning of 20th century, Russian culture had experienced an irrepressible attraction to this country. feeling that the moral searches coincided with Indian spiritual tradition. From 1924 to 1928, Roerich took part in a Central Asian expedition organized by N.K. Roerich that traveled through hard-to-reach and little-investigated regions of India, China, Russia, Mongolia and Tibet. During the expedition, research in topics such as history, archaeology, ethnography, history of philosophy, arts and religions, and geography was conducted. Previously unknown mountain peaks and passes were mapped, rare manuscripts were found, and rich linguistic materials were collected. Special attention was paid to the problem of historical unity of cultures of various peoples. The expedition was carried out in very difficult conditions. Roerich shared all hardships of the travel with the others. Hard passages, robbers' attacks, and obstacles created by English officials that nearly have resulted in death of the expedition. In April 1925, when N. Roerich's expedition stayed in Gulmarg, Roerich began to translate an extensive selection from Mahatma's letters from English to Russian, which she published in London in 1923. She also wrote a book named Chalice of the East, which was published that year under the pen name Iskandarkhanum. Roerich's manuscript, Foundations of Buddhism, was published in 1926, at Urga, where her expedition was staying at the time. In this book, the fundamental philosophical notions of Buddha's teaching were interpreted. The book also spoke about the deep moral basis of this teaching and disproved one of the main stereotypes Western thinking of the time, namely, that the men of Buddhism are insignificant and forgotten by the Lord creature. In 1927, one of the Living Ethics books was published in the same place in Mongolia. After finishing of Central Asian expedition, Roerich remained in India, in Kulu Valley, Himachal Pradesh. There, in 1928, they had found an Institute of Himalayan Studies, Urusavati. It was planned as Institute for Complex Study of Asian regions which exerted influence on the development of world culture. Among the tasks of the Urusavati was the complex study of human, its psychic and physiological features. Roerich became an honorary president-founder of the Institute and actively took part in organization of its work. Being a subtle art connoisseur and deep philosopher, she knew well the scientific problems of the Institute, and often directed the researchers as experienced scientists. The main task of Roerich's activity was in studying of ancient philosophic thought of the East. Roerich had dreamed that sometime a city of knowledge would rise in Kulu Valley, which would become an international scientific center. Later, Urusavati became a large international institute that united well-known scientists from many countries. J. Bose, R. Tagore, A. Einstein, R. Millikan, Elder Broly, R. Magoffin, S. Gedden, S. I. Metelnikov, N.I. The Vavilov al. had collaborated with it. In Kulu, Roerich continued her work on living ethics, the main work of her life. In 1929, her work, Cryptograms of the East, was published in Paris in Russian under the pen name Josephine Saint-Hilaire. This work contains apocryphal legends and parables from the lives of great devotees and teachers of mankind: Buddha, Christ, Apollonius of Tyana, Akbar the Great, St. Sergius of Radanez. Roerich devoted a special essay, The Banner of St. Sergius of Radanez, to an image of the savior and defender of Russian land. In this essay she joined knowledge of history and theology with deep and reverent love to the hermit. His essay was included in the book, Banner of St. Sergius of Radanez, published under the pen name N. Jarovskaya in 1934. Later life. In the first half of the 1930s, Roerich translated from English to Russian 2 volumes of H. P. Blavatsky's fundamental work, Secret Doctrine. Separate fragments of this treatise were given in various often ancient languages. Roerich's proficiency in many languages and knowledge of philosophy made it possible to manage this work during a very short time. A special place in Roerich's creativity belongs to her epistolary heritage. She corresponded with more than 140 persons. The letter's geography involves several continents. Among Roerich's correspondents were friends, followers, cultural workers, political figures. In her letters, Roerich has answered numerous questions, explained the most complex philosophical and scientific problems, foundations of the living ethics. She wrote about great laws of cosmos, meaning of human life, importance of culture for human evolution, great teachers. In 1940, a 2-volume edition of Letters of Helena Roerich was published in Riga. A complete set of Roerich's letters is published by the International Center of the Roerichs, where her epistolary heritage is kept. It was transferred to ICR by S.N. Roerich in 1990. During N.K. Roerich's Manchurian expedition, Roerich had corresponded with international cultural and enlightened organizations and coordinated its activity for support the Roerich Pact. As a result of this work, the Roerich Pact was signed on April 15, 1935 by heads of 22 countries. In January 1948, after her husband's death, Roerich, together with her eldest son, moved to Delhi and then to Kandala, where they had waited for steamship from Russia with their entrance visas. But Russia denied the visas. They made the home in Kalimpong. Roerich continued hope for return home and to transfer to Russian people the works of her life, to work for good of best country. Roerich, just like N.K. Roerich, had not changed Russian citizenship, but her numerous applications remained without response. Death. Roerich died October 5, 1955. In the place of her cremation, the lamas had raised a white stupa on which the following epitaph was carved. Helena Roerich, the wife of Nicholas Roerich, thinker and writer, old friend of India. Legacy. A minor planet named after Roerich on October 15, 1969. A minor planet of solar system was discovered by astronomers of Crimean Astrophysical Observatory Nikolai Stepanovich and Lyudmila Ivanovna Roerich. This planet was named in honor of Roerich's family. It was numbered 4426. Other. On July 6, 1978, group of alpinists has risen on nameless mountain peak and has gone through pass between the peaks Roerich and Belukha. This pass and nameless peak has been named Urusvati in honor of Roerich. On October 9, 1999, during Jubilee celebrations devoted to 125th anniversary of N.K. Roerich's birthday and 120th anniversary of Roerich's demise, a monument was established near the entrance of museum named after N. Roerich. This monument is sculptural portrayal of Nicholas Konstantinovich and Helena Roerich. In 1999, the International Center of the Roerichs instituted a Jubilee Medal, Helena Roerich, dedicated to the 120th anniversary of H.I. Roerich. In April 2003, the College of Arts named after Roerich began to work in the building of Institute Urusvati. In 2005, the Museum of Helena Roerich has been opened in retired 2-storied mansion known as Krukati House in Kalimpong. Here Roerich worked during last years of life. Opening of the museum was timed to the 50th anniversary of her death. A public library named after Roerich was founded at Altaic village Uskoksa. In 2007, library holdings include near 75,000 of publications. More than 1,600 persons have used its service. From 2003, the library is a member of Russian Library Association and collective member of International Library Association IFLA. A charitable foundation named after Roerich was created in 2001 in Moscow to finance the programs dedicated to popularization of Roerich's heritage and development of cultural actions. The foundation furthers an activity in the field of education, science, culture, art, enlightenment. One of the directions of the foundation's activity is revelation of young talents in various fields of art and help them to protect and develop the creative abilities. An international award named after Roerich was instituted by the charitable foundation named after her to encourage scientific research connected with studying of scientific and philosophic Roerich's heritage. N. Roerich's paintings dedicated to Roerich, holder of the world, she who leads, from beyond, Agni Yoga, works, Leaves of Moryu's Garden I, Leaves of Moryu's Garden II, New Era Community, Agni Yoga, Infinity I, Infinity II, Hierarchy, Heart, Fiery World I, Fiery World II, Fiery World 3, AUM, Brotherhood, Supermundane I, Supermundane 2, Supermundane 3, Supermundane IV, Letters of Helena Roerich, Volume IIX, On Eastern Crossroads, Foundations of Buddhism.